The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Back again. You know what? 12 hours after the last time we recorded? 15 hours after the last time we
15,
recorded?
16 hours. We're going to drop this, and you guys are going to have less than 24 hours to listen to it before it becomes a little bit outdated, which I think is a new record. But that's just what it's like. Don't feel too bad for us. Maybe feel a little bad for the Phoenix Suns, who must be flying to OKC right now. Maybe they've already done it.
Yeah.
And have to play at noon Phoenix time tomorrow.
Flying to OKC would be bad under any circumstances, in my opinion.
That is fair. You're maybe already pissing off a couple people
if
anyone's tuning in to try and listen to the opposing side.
Like, we're in Phoenix. Phoenix is like, a second tier city, I would say, right? Probably it's definitely not like a top tier city. No offense to Phoenix. I love living here personally, but it is what it is. So if we have the opportunity to start that kind of city versus city rivalry, I think we have OKC beat by a lot in this case. So got to take advantage of the one thing that we might have in this one, which is being proud of living somewhere I like. The Suns are in the playoffs. We talked about it after the game last night. Any thoughts on that today? Just going into today, you've had a night to sleep on it barely because we were up so late recording. I'm
really happy to be here. We talked about that aspect of it last night. It just would have been so anticlimactic to have such a fun season where you kind of blow the expectations out of the water, and then for it to end in the play-in, not to mention the added embarrassment that would have been there if the Suns were the first 7 seed ever to get bounced and lose both games. So thankfully that did not happen. We now have a daunting task ahead of us. But I'm going to make the most of it. I guess I would start there a little bit, as today the focus I think is just on who are the Oklahoma City Thunder, what is this matchup going to look like? Do you think of the Thunder? I'm trying to think of how I should contextualize this. Here's how I'll contextualize it. Okay, so according to SRS, which is a stat tracked by Basketball Reference, simple rating system, it's a combination of your point differential and your strength of schedule, and tries to understand how good a team is, at least in the regular season, for their era in one metric. And according to that stat, the Thunder just had the 6th best regular season of all time. And they're coming off, this is after, according to SRS, they had the best regular season of all time last year when they won the championship. And now they have the 6th best. And they're up there with the other teams that you would expect, like Jordan Bulls, and I think there's a Kareem Lakers team in there, and the
Warriors.
Warriors.
Yeah.
Warriors. It's like those teams, right? Yeah. And then it's the Thunder. So do you think of this Thunder team as one of those teams at this point? Like, do you think of them kind of just as, is this a normal 1 versus 8 matchup to you, or does this feel like, one of those historical opponents?
The teams that you're speaking about in the comparison have the benefit of hindsight, right? They have history on their side. They were good for years and years and years, and they were successful for years and years and years. So the perception of them, regardless of this individual season you're thinking about, has all of that built in. And although I think that the majority of the people would say no to that regarding the Oklahoma City Thunder, I do think that if they continue to be successful for years, people will look back on this time a little bit differently. And by the way, they are built to be successful for years and years and years, as long as they remain healthy. I kind of do think of them that way. There was
I do too.
Yeah.
And I'm the reason I say it, I guess I'm not just trying to set it up for like they are a historical team or a historic team, and that gives us excuses for the Suns to get blown out in 4 straight games. I'm not saying it because of that, but I think the point you make about hindsight and the benefit you get with hindsight is a really good one. And the Thunder are still really young. They're still really new to this. Last year was their first season when they won. Obviously, it was their first season of. They had made the playoffs before, but it was their first season of truly dominating the league. And this is year 2 now. They have more experience, but part of it I think is also just the way the league covers a small market. You can make fun of OKC as a team all you want, or as a city all you want, but they're not going to get the same sort of media coverage as Golden State, even at the height of the Curry and KD era, or even Miami when LeBron was there. It's just a different type of city that's not going to benefit from those things.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're just talking about the basketball, I think they're right up there with this. This to me is not dissimilar from we're gearing up to play the KD Warriors.
Yeah. I participated in a poll by Steph No, the writer. He didn't say anyone who participated in it, so I guess maybe I'm revealing a little much here, but he polled a bunch of media members, and he included me in that, so thank you to him for even considering me that, but he just asked for opinions.
He didn't ask me, so
Sorry.
what the fuck, Steph?
Yeah, I'll let him know that you're offended. What he asked was simply, who is the best player in the NBA? Who would you say is the best player in the NBA? I'll tell you what I said.
Jordan Goodwin.
I said SGA. The majority of the people in that poll
said Jokic.
I
think I would have said Jokic.
I think SGA is better this year. And I think he's going to win MVP. So I think that probably it'll bear out that way. But yeah, most people say the reason I said is, and it's quoted in the article anonymously, but the reason I said was he's the most inevitable. The thing that I've seen in watching OKC, and I've watched OKC quite a bit this season. He'll go, look, he has the streak of 20-point games, and it's just insane. I know that some people think that's a boring streak, but it's insane. He has the longest streak of 20-plus point games in the history of the NBA, and that's in today's era. I know stats are still a little bit inflated, but the guy he beat was from the most inflated stat era ever in Wilt. So anytime he maybe has 15 points or whatever going into the fourth, he's going to score 15 more, and they're going to win. And that just feels more inevitable than Jokic does at a certain point. And Jokic is excellent. Don't get me wrong. It's not, we're splitting hairs here in deciding who the best player is. But to me, SGA has been the best. And, when at the time that I filled out that poll, I was hoping the Suns would actually be playing Wemby in the first round instead of SGA, but here we are against the guy I consider the best player in the NBA. And by the way, Wemby was third in that list. Some media members already picking Wemby as the best player in the NBA this season.
We're at a point in the arc of his career, because he's 27 now, right? He's already won an MVP. He's already been an MVP candidate for 4 years, right? I think he started receiving MVP votes 3 years ago. And I think what's so impressive is he doesn't take a lot of threes, but he's been a capable 3-point shooter for a long time. But by 27, by your 8th or 9th season in the NBA, I feel like we're at a point where you would think that what he came into the league doing, his bread and butter of being the best slasher in the league, you would expect it to almost be fading a little bit by now and him having to start relying on other things. And that really hasn't been the case at all. In fact, he's only gotten better as a 27-year-old as a driver and as a slasher. He has a career high. I mean, first of all, he's averaging 31 points a game in 33 minutes, which is incredible right there. But he's at a career high 66% true shooting, which for a point guard is just amazing. Mm-hmm. He has a career high 75% shooting at the rim, according to Basketball Reference, and he's been above 70% for a few years, but 75% as a point guard is just historic. It has to be maybe the greatest of all time for a player under a certain height, or at least, at the very least, very close to being up there. And I don't know how you begin. We haven't really talked yet about, like, okay, so the challenge that the Suns have before them. I don't know how you begin to cut off the head of the snake here, or if that's even the goal, as it relates to the Thunder, because we know what the starting five is going to be. It's going to be SGA. It's going to be Chet. It's going to be Jalen Williams, J-Dub. And then it's going to be Lou Dort, who's probably not a good basketball player, but he'll be in there, and Hartenstein. Do you disagree with that?
No, I think that's the most likely case. I mean, what would be their other options, I guess? Hartenstein.
I mean, they've had other guys who have started throughout the year, but only because of injuries.
For Dort. No, I think even healthy, they had AJ Mitchell in a couple of games, who's been awesome this year as well.
Lou Dort has started every game. AJ Mitchell is really good. I want to talk about him. But Lou Dort has started every game he's played this year.
Well, then,
I think low-key,
you can be pretty confident that he's going to start then.
One of the only advantages that the Suns could potentially have is if the Thunder reverse psychology themselves into thinking we really need Lou Dort to shut down Devin Booker. Let's play him 35 minutes. And then Lou Dort is just Lou Dort. And he's kind of, a non-factor offensively. And Lou Dort is one of the only players on the Thunder who, like, they were better with him off the floor this year. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think it would actually be great if Lou Dort played more basketball. But it's going to be really tough because Shea's going to be penetrating downhill 20 times a game. And then it's also interesting because Hartenstein is the only non-shooter on the entire team, right? There are other guys like J-Dub has shot the ball poorly from three this year, weirdly. I know he's been dealing with injuries as well, but whenever Hartenstein is off the floor, they will always have, in theory, 5 shooters on the floor. Even if one of those shooters is like a Lou Dort or an Alex Caruso or J-Dub, guys who like are maybe technically a little bit iffy, there will always be 5 guys who can shoot. So that combination with Shea's ability to drive, it's like way, way more difficult than what we were talking about earlier this week with like Denny Avdia doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just a supercharged version of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be incredibly difficult. It's a weird season as far as like looking at the overall games that the Suns have played against OKC. First of all, 5 games in the regular season versus OKC. I don't know if you remember, there was a thing called the in-game or the in-season tournament that the Suns took part of. Feels like 10 years ago at this point with the way the season has gone. But the Suns did play OKC 5 times, one of a few teams, I would say, in the NBA that beat them twice because they had the game winner by Devin Booker. And then, of course, the last game of the season, which, Bouye had 27 points and, Malawach had 14 rebounds. So not quite a normal game. And, of course, nobody played for OKC as well. But the Suns did win that game by 30-plus points. So overall, the Suns are 2-3 in the matchups they played. But looking at those games, how much do they really matter? For the Suns, Devin Booker only played 2 of those games. In those 2 games, the Suns were 1-1. Of course, the winning shot by Devin Booker. The other game was like a 4 or 5 point game that the Suns lost. If you remember that game, that was the one time this season where Colin Gillespie was kind of good against OKC. I think he had 20, 21, or 22 points, I think, in that game. And Devin Booker had like 20. In the 2 games Devin Booker played, he averaged 22.5 points and 7.5 assists on 41% field goal shooting and 27% from 3. They did bother him. They have a ton of guys who can bother him. I will say Book, throughout his career, has done pretty well against Alex Caruso. Famously even in the playoffs. But Alex Caruso, obviously one of the best defenders in the NBA. I wouldn't say that it's guaranteed that he can continue to be great against Alex Caruso, but throughout his career has been. He averaged 13 free throw attempts in those games as well. But across the board, man, when you look at the stats of the guys who played against the OKC Thunder, those field goal percentages not looking great, Sam. They're not looking great. Do you want to guess the 2 players that played all 5 games?
That's an interesting question. Colin. That's one?
No.
What? Didn't play all 5 games?
I don't think he played the last game of the season, did he?
The last game of the season. Okay, yeah. So it's Oso.
Yep, because he played all 82.
Dunn.
No.
What the fuck?
Dunn
Oso. Bouye?
Bouye. Yeah.
That's so stupid.
Do you want to guess the two? Do you want to guess the two OKC Thunder players that played all 5 games? It's even funnier.
The 2 OKC players that played all 5 games.
You won't do it. I don't think you can do it.
Wait, hold on. Isaiah Joe?
No. Played 3.
Fuck. Who would it even be?
It's Kenrich Williams and Lou Dort.
Okay.
Surprisingly, Lou Dort, who missed games this season, played all 5 against the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
I didn't even remember that he played in the final game of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So regarding, their ability to guard Book, you're talking about it's Caruso, but it's everyone, right, is the issue. And so, they have a real wear you down effect because it'll be Lou Dort, but it'll also be Caruso, but it'll also be Cason Wallace, but it'll, you go down the line, and except for maybe Jared McCain, if he plays, they don't have any negative defenders. And I don't even know who's going to play for the Thunder off the bench. I briefly touched on this yesterday, but it's like they have
options,
a lot of depth.
Yeah.
They have a lot of depth. They have 12 or 13 guys who could play and would be decent. Yeah. And so I don't know what their playoff rotation is actually going to look like, but you consider the fact that the Suns have been playing all week. The Thunder have been resting all week. And I'm obviously worried in general, but I'm worried about tomorrow's game that it could be a real blowout on the road because the Thunder are going to have such fresh legs.
If you care about coffee and how it's made, check out Alchemy Roast. They roast in small batches and source their beans responsibly, focusing on flavor instead of mass production. The result is coffee that's balanced, well-developed, and easy to drink whether you brew at home every day or just want something better than grocery store coffee. You can order online at alchemyroaster.com, and if you use the promo code TIMELINE at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. Go now to alchemyroaster.com, my favorite coffee, and use the promo code TIMELINE at checkout. Get 10% off, support a local Phoenix business, and get the best coffee you can buy.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Did you see that Steve Nash said Devin Booker's not quite right physically?
I did see that.
Yeah. Not great going into this game to think about Devin Booker playing not right. Also frustrating for Devin Booker to be not healthy in the postseason. Again, it's not the first time that this has happened with Devin Booker. Sure would be nice to get just a fully healthy run with him. The last time you had that, they got all the way to the finals, and then he had an injury in the NBA Finals, played through a hamstring injury. But yeah, it's a scenario where the Suns are going to struggle no matter what, but looking at these games without Devin Booker being fully healthy, it's going to get even more complicated. I did start this podcast by asking you, after a night's worth of rest coming into today, what were your thoughts about what happened last night with the Suns' last play-in game? For me, I woke up thinking, what really is Jalen Green's ceiling? What could that possibly be? So I allowed myself...
It's an interesting idea.
...to be imaginative because, we have games, postseason games of Jalen Green last year, against the same team, by the way, where he struggled. He was actually really bad offensively. Shot in 30% for the series or whatever. Had one good game. And then we have these two games where he played really, really well. Now, he has the opportunity to do one or the other in these upcoming games. His consistency is part of the problem with him, of course, as we've seen, but also he's struggled his way back through an injury. If you think about because to me, what we're thinking about with this OKC team, to come up with a game plan to beat them, I think would require some luck. Injury luck is what I would say, which I'm not going to wish on anyone. But that's kind of what it would take for the Suns to win the series. But if we're just talking about stealing a game or two, I think you can come up with a recipe to steal a game or two for the Suns, right? It would require Devin Booker playing really well. It would require Jalen Green having one of his explosive point scoring games.
Yeah, he needs to play like he did in the play-in. And then if you want to envision what does a game look like where the Suns steal a game from the Thunder, it involves Jalen Green being really good.
Yeah.
And
then
he
I would say
absolutely
like
can do that, just maybe not every game of a 7-game series.
I would say like a Royce O'Neal 7 3-pointer game and maybe a Colin Gillespie scores 18 points or whatever. Like all of those things combined where the Suns just find a way to outscore them with shooting. And OKC goes cold from the 3-point line, which they've done in the postseason before, but their defense is so good that they mostly overcome that. That would be the way to steal one or maybe 2 games for the Suns. It's the NBA, right? 3-point variance is going to have the biggest impact on whether or not a team could win, especially when they are clearly outmatched when it comes to overall talent and skill.
I think, Dylan Brooks goads Shea into some sort of brawl in the first quarter that gets both of them ejected.
Mm-hmm. A Canadian-style one, yeah.
And then J-Dub shoots like 4 for 18, trying to be the primary scorer for OKC, which is totally plausible. Mm-hmm. That's the sort of luck that you would need to, if you wanted to win the series, I guess. But you're right. Even if the Thunder are absolutely healthy, we beat them healthy once this year, and it could happen again. I think it's interesting to think about just like, what are the Suns? I posed the question last night, and I said I couldn't think of anything. What are the Suns better at than the Thunder? Do you have anything now? I thought of one thing. I
didn't look at team stats. I felt like
statistically, there is one thing.
What is it?
It is offensive rebounding.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a strategic thing in some ways, right? In
some ways, absolutely. The Thunder the Thunder know that they're very good at almost everything else. They are 28th in offensive rebound percentage. So I think, very much to some extent, they're just like, hey, let's be a great transition defense team instead. We don't need the offensive rebounds because we know that our possessions are efficient. There's definitely part of that. But also, I do think there is, a little bit of truth to the idea that maybe the guys they play, like Lou Dort and J-Dub, just aren't great rebounders to begin with. Mm-hmm. And so, you can even out the possession battle in the way that the Suns have been doing all season by crashing the glass. Mm-hmm. And that is one thing that they could do. And that is why Jordan Goodwin is going to continue to play, I know for a fact, and is going to be so important in this series. But that's kind of the one thing, if we're being honest.
Well, it's interesting, too, because in some ways I almost feel as though OKC would benefit from not starting Isaiah Hartenstein and just going with Chet at center, because there's a world where the way that the OKC Thunder are built is that they have the ability of playing small and they have the ability of playing big, and they can do it either way. They could even play without Chet on the floor and still have an incredible small ball lineup of just wings who are really fast and strong. Even Caruso at times will guard centers. But for the Suns, the thing that they've struggled the most with so far this season is guarding teams that are efficient in playing 5 out. And if you combine 5 out with someone who can drive like SGA, I think that's really going to cause the Suns to struggle. So where they can look at the option to use guys to crash when they have 2 bigs in the starting lineup with Isaiah and with Chet, I do think that they will probably spend a significant amount of time with just shooters at center and just try to, force the Suns to try to guard SGA driving and then just spray it out to shooters or let him get fouled, because it's going to be difficult to guard in that way. The same way that the Suns struggled with it in Portland or with Portland.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, everyone else on that team shoots. If they want to have the other Jalen Williams playing, small ball center minutes, he'll be a constant threat on the floor to shoot. Chet will be a constant threat on the floor to shoot. And so I don't know if the Suns will be able to kind of choose to take away one or the other. The other guy I worry about, and I want to bring him up here, is AJ Mitchell. AJ Mitchell, for those who maybe weren't following as closely this season, took a huge step up in his sophomore season as essentially the de facto 6th man for OKC, and averaged 13.6 points, 3 rebounds and change, 3 assists and change. But like Shea, can barrel his way to the basket. Mm-hmm. And when they play both of them together, I don't anticipate that AJ Mitchell will start. I anticipate that he is going to be the 6th man, but there will be moments of the game where him and Shea share the floor. When him and Shea shared the floor this year, I wanted to look this up, the Thunder had a 126 offensive rating. If you add Chet to that duo, because you've got two guys who are incredibly effective at driving and can also both hit a catch and shoot three if they need to. When you add Chet to those two, all three on the floor was a 129 offensive rating and a plus 21 net rating. And that was like several hundred minutes between the three of them. So, I think if it's just Chet if it's just Shea, you can trap him and like kind of, hope to put the ball in other people's hands and he'll wiggle his way out of some of that. But like, maybe you have a chance. But if you throw AJ Mitchell in there and then you just have another guy who can get downhill really, really well. And like, let's say you have Chet at the 5 and it's just 5 out all the time. The lanes are so wide open that I don't even know if you're Jordan Knott. I don't know what you do at that point.
Would you start, like, let's say they do their normal starting lineup where SGA is by far their best creator. Now, don't get me wrong, Chet can do stuff that sometimes it'll surprise you, but it's obviously SGA as their main creator. Would you start just keeping him one-on-one, letting him go off as much as possible and just staying home on shooters, or would you try to force the ball out of his hands as much as possible and hope the guys that are shooting miss? Because I think, OKC will miss sometimes.
I think he's
and
too
SGA
good.
is really efficient. So like it's a pick your poison thing here because they're both poisonous. It's not a good way either way.
Too good. I think he's too good one-on-one. I mean, I understand the temptation to want to say like, force the other guys to make shots, and that's what I said on Denny the other day and it didn't work, but I think Shea, if you just guard him straight up, he's going to get to the basket and he's too good either way. Like, I think he's still going to create the advantages, and you're going to end up in a situation kind of like with Denny, where he has both 36 points and 8 assists, right? Yeah. Because like he's still getting to the basket, and the last line of defense is still coming over at the last second to try and guard, and like they're creating threes anyway. So you have to find a way to wall up around him somehow, and live with the results, I guess, man.
Yeah.
We probably sound really pessimistic here. I wouldn't even call it pessimism. I think it's just pragmatism in this one. Like, we understand that this is the biggest underdog series of all the series happening in the NBA right now. More so than, what's the 1 versus 8 in the East? It's Detroit and Orlando.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, like, Orlando could push that. I don't have any trust in Orlando, generally speaking, but like, would anyone really be surprised if that series went to 7? Would it be that crazy? Because like Detroit just hasn't earned it yet. OKC has earned it. They have the intimidation factor that I don't think any other team in the league has. And I think a lot of people around the league are expecting us to get swept. That's just, that's just the reality. So let's go out there. I hope Jordan Knott's not saying this. They need to have faith that they can win the series and whatever. But like, from my vantage point, it's just like, let's go out and not get swept.
Looking at the game, the Suns won the 108-105 victory with Devin Booker hitting the sidestep three-pointer for the win over Lou Dort and Alex Caruso. The way the Suns won was pretty simple. Like, they made 7 more threes. That's the start, right? They shot 17 for 43 from 3, where OKC shot 10 for 32. They out-rebounded them by 20 total rebounds, 10 more offensive rebounds than the OKC Thunder. But they still turned it over 16 times. So, and the thing about OKC, like, you could out-rebound them. You probably won't out-turn, they're going to make you turn the ball over more than you can make them turn the ball over. But if the Suns can find a way to hold on to possessions and not turn the ball over and then win the offensive rebounding possession battle, that's really going to be beneficial for them. And in this game, they found a way to win even without winning the turnover battle because of just how much they out-rebounded OKC. So, it's that type of recipe that it would take to beat them. And then, X factors remain the same to me, like, because we kind of know what you're going to get from the starting lineup. And there's obviously some variance in there with Devin Booker not playing as well as he used to and Jalen Green playing better than he was. But
do we
with
know
the
about
bench,
Mark
we
Williams?
don't know. Mark Williams, we
for
still
tomorrow?
don't know. I think we don't know yet.
Okay, I would list him as an X factor in this one just because, if the Thunder play it straight up and start Hartenstein, I think that's a good matchup for Mark Williams. A nice traditional big where he really needs to leave his stamp on the game through controlling the paint. And then I think if OKC decides to go small for significant portions of the game, then that opens the game up, and I'm sure Ott will counter with Oso. But I think there's a chance here that this is a real opportunity actually for Mark Williams to be an X factor.
Yeah. Outside of that,
if he plays,
we're assuming just the normal lineup for the Suns, which of course is some version of the starting lineup that we've seen, which is Jalen Green, Devin Booker. We're going to assume Jordan Goodwin, right? He's been so good, so we're going to assume Jordan
Goodwin will play.
And that probably means Jordan Goodwin starting on SGA and Dylan Brooks starting on J-Dub or Jalen Williams. So I assume that's going to be the case for the Suns, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
It's a stronger player. You put Dylan Brooks on him. Dylan Brooks obviously helped. There were some great clips of some of the switching stuff I was talking about with Dylan Brooks yesterday, too. I think he can do some of that stuff in this game, too, just helping in a way that allows the Suns to rotate and still cover shooters.
You're talking about the peel switches?
Yeah, you can't stay in front of SGA. You just can't stay in front of him. No individual player on the Suns can do it.
I mean, Dylan's a smart player. He's going to try and do those peel switches. So when SGA, that means that when SGA is getting by the initial line of defense, Dylan is coming over from typically the wing to be the kind of have a seamless transition of being able to take on that defensive assignment while the guy who's guarding SGA peels out to the perimeter on a shooter.
Yeah.
The timing needs to be good,
impeccable.
And
it has to be perfect.
The communication needs to be perfect in order for it to work. And I have no doubt that they're going to be able to execute it a few times a game, but like not every time. And it's just that's one of the hardest things at the highest level to be able to execute on. So if Shea is just getting downhill at will all game, that you can't just be guarding him like that all game.
What would you consider a success in this series?
I just want to learn more about what we have. I want to learn more about Jalen Green and his ability to keep composure in just what is a really difficult challenge. He played so well in the play-in, but I think we're going to learn a lot about Jalen Green in this series. I think we're going to learn a lot if he plays again about Mark Williams in this series. This is in many ways a contract-defining series, I think, for a guy like Mark Williams. It's a contract-defining series for Colin Gillespie, who needs to just give us something in the playoffs, right? He can't just disappear for 4 or 5 games. Mm-hmm. So we're going to learn a lot. I want
you're
this
not
series to
tying
go,
a success to any sort of number of wins in this series. Then
I want it to go to 5 or 6 games. It's hard to think about like if they actually get swept. It's hard to think about that as even in a process over results way. I don't really think you can celebrate that in any way. I don't want to get fucking swept. I would love for this series to be like a hard fought Thunder in 6. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yep, I understand that. How well do you think the fan base online will handle losing a game by 30 or so?
Losing a game by 30? I mean, we're setting expectations like rock bottom
Well,
here.
we are.
So,
but, we only, we don't have that many people listen to us.
Yeah.
Only the smartest and most handsome and most beautiful people listen to us. So that's only a small percentage of fans.
And the most caffeine addicted who are buying their coffee from Alchemy Roast.
Mm-hmm. Need 10% off. They listen to a whole podcast just for a promo code.
Yeah, I mean, like how destructive do you think the discourse is going to be around Booker if they're losing by 25 and Booker is like having games with 18 points? Is that what you're asking?
12 shots, yeah.
It's not going to be a
I'm
fun
gonna log
time
off. I'm going to log off.
Well, it's not going to be a fun time to be online. Yeah, I'll say that. It would be nice if we can keep all these games within 10 points.
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask for.
I think
particularly tomorrow, man. I mean, game 1,
it's tough.
You're coming off like 36 hours since your last game. OKC hasn't played in a week.
Possibly no Mark Williams, possibly no Grayson Allen, who played well in the win that the Suns had against.
That's another thing, is just having Grayson as an additional bailout option offensively, so you can lean on him a little bit more and a little bit less on guys like Royce O'Neal or whatever.
Yeah, so it's not just the shooting too, because he can get 5 assists in a game, and there's just only a few guys on the Suns that can do that.
He can legitimately drive. Yeah. So it would be huge to have Grayson in the series, but I just don't know what to expect.
Yeah, we're gonna keep this one short because, their game is in. At this point, 19 hours or so. That's when the game starts at the end of this recording for us, at least. So we want to give you all a chance to listen to this. So we'll keep this one short. We're going to try to come back a couple of times throughout this series to talk about the rest of the games and see if we have good things to talk about or eventually maybe not so good things depending on the game. But we'll definitely be here to cover it all. Is there anything else you would like to add before we leave this one, Sam?
Everyone say your prayers tonight.
Yeah.
Let's have fun tomorrow.
That's right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Back after game 1 of the NBA playoffs.